Okay. So to start things off, do you think Canada's doing enough to support the vets?
No,
Okay, why is that? Explain.
because so to use the example of say somebody got injured in Afghanistan or
Mm-hmm.
something, stepped in a bomb or something and blew their leg off
Mm-hmm.
without any, right? So when you're injured, you're medically released from the military, and then you qualify for a lifetime medical
Mm-hmm.
pension. However, in order to maintain your qualification for this medical pension, you have to go to the doctor at a certain time frame, every so many years,
Mm-hmm.
and resubmit your claim to either Veterans Affairs or Pensions Canada in order to keep that medical
Mm-hmm.
pension. And the reason you have to go to the doctor is to prove that your leg didn't grow back. That seems a little bit unnecessary,
Hmm.
considering, duh,
Yeah.
right? So when it's overwhelmingly obvious that you sustained a mortal injury
Mm-hmm.
and there's no chance of recovery, it seems ridiculous to have to go back and prove that, hey, I stepped in something, blew my leg off, and it still hasn't grown back.
Hmm.
Can I please have my medical check? You know,
Hmm.
or the mental health crisis with veterans and stuff. The statistic of 22 veterans every single day between Canada and the United States accumulatively, 22 veterans kill themselves every single day because they're PTSD and alcoholism and depression and stuff. Um, you know, there's a culture in the military, and I can speak to it because I've been there.
Hmm.
They say, call for help if you need help. Like, go speak to somebody if you need to speak to somebody. But if you do go speak to somebody, you have to sign a piece of paper saying we reserve the right to kick you out of the military if we deem that you're not worth fixing. So say somebody's seen some bad stuff, and they go to a counselor or whatever because they're having nightmares or whatever. If you take too long to get better, they just get rid of you. So if you're a husband and you got a wife and you got kids and you got a mortgage payment and you got a credit payment, and you got credit cards, are you gonna go talk to this counselor with the risk of losing your career, or are you just gonna buckle up and soldier on,
Hmm.
as the saying goes? Um, so there are some instances where people who should seek some kind of counseling don't because they're too afraid to lose their job, and then people that are already out trying to get any kind of well, depending, like all injuries are different, but trying to deal with Veterans Affairs and stuff, like if you say you were like in the artillery or something and you went deaf, you shoot a gun that shoots a bullet that's 150 pounds. That's the bullet. Imagine how big the gun is. Like you need heavy equipment to maneuver this
Hmm.
gun, right? She's loud. I think anybody that can do basic math would say if you were operating that weapon for all those years, that's probably what made you go deaf. And yet, trying to get hearing aids from Veterans Affairs is like pulling teeth. So, trying to fight for, you know what you get into when you sign up, right? Like there's a chance that you're probably going to get killed. But the fact that you're willing to say, okay, I might get killed, and that's okay, because I know what I signed up for. There should be, you were quick enough to sign up and saying, if I die, I die, that's okay. The government should match that level of readiness to support you when you're done.
All right. So on the topic of like Remembrance Day in November, should November be solely dedicated to veterans? As in, no other things can sort of intervene to that November. It is completely untouchable. Should it be that way?
I don't think it should be forced to be that way, because I think, you know, when you sign the line and say you're going to defend the freedoms of Canadians and stuff, one of the freedoms that people don't often recognize is you don't have to observe Remembrance Day. It's your right as a free person in a free country to not observe Remembrance Day if you don't feel like you want to. You should, because the freedoms that we have in Canada are blindly taken for granted so often. But part of being in a free country is if you don't support what's going on, you don't have to partake in it. Um, I don't. I mean, there's people people that protest Remembrance Day, and even though I don't agree with them, it's their right to do it, you know. Um, I think the culture of Remembrance Day is like veterans get, like they call it like Veterans Week, it's like the first full week in November, so it's the 4th or 5th of November to the 11th. And that's great. Like they do the Poppy campaign, and there's war movies on TV or whatever. But I admire what the United States does in a way because they have Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Armed Forces Day. So there's 3 separate holidays throughout the year. And yeah, they don't do the Veterans Week situation, but with such a important thing to commemorate, I think 3 reminders throughout the year would be more beneficial to like foster a society of people that are grateful for what we have, because if things didn't go the way they did, we might not even be having this talk, right?
Hmm.
So as far as November being dedicated solely to veterans, I mean, I think the government could support that a little more, instead of just giving everybody a paid day off, or they could support it, but I wouldn't support them mandating it on anybody.
All right. I'm glad you brought up the United States because it kind of turns into the next question. In terms of Canada, do you think that Remembrance Day is celebrated well enough?
Well, there's like the parade in Ottawa is unreal. I was at the Remembrance Day ceremony in Ottawa a few years ago. But like the entire city's pretty well shut down. The prime minister's there, and all these political figures are there, and all these high ups in the military are there and stuff. And yeah, I think it's well enough, but it's almost become like in some aspects it's become a novelty. That first week in November everybody puts the flower on their coat, and the old fella sitting in the superstore with the poppies, they put a couple dollars in his can and stuff. That's great. So that's 5 days out of the year. The other 360 days of the year, legions are closing all across the country. So as opposed to hitting it hard and fast for 5 or 6 days a year, even if we didn't hit it so hard and fast, like still have the parades and have the ceremonies and stuff. But like D-Day was yesterday or a couple days ago. I didn't see anything in the news about it. I didn't hear about it on the radio.
That's true. I've never heard anything either.
D-Day, right? That was a turning point in history. I've interviewed people that were shot at D-Day. Like they survived, like they were on the beaches and they lived, Had D-Day not happened, we might be speaking German, right?
That's true.
That's like D-Day was one of the most pivotal battles that there was. It was a huge part of the campaign, right? Hardly a word about it. Afghanistan, the Afghanistan campaign has Vigil Day or something. There is some kind of a day for Afghanistan veterans. It's in June. You never hear about it in the news. There's no there's not even a memorial in Ottawa for Afghanistan veterans. And yeah, it wasn't as big as the Second World War or anything like that, but 120 some odd people. We lost 100 and some odd guys over there. So, when you start losing people in that amount, even a commercial might be nice.
100 sounds small, but it's still a pretty big deal.
Well, I think anytime you lose anybody, that's... Yeah, Afghanistan was a mess anyway. But, I don't know, they didn't die for nothing.
That is true. So, on to the next thing. How do you think that the general public sees veterans? And if it's seen negatively, in your opinion, should that image be changed?
How does the public see veterans?
Yes.
I think the public sees veterans it's hard to it's hard to say in such a general terms because there's such a mixed opinion. Like I was on parade in British Columbia, and there was people protesting like whatever the distance is, like 100 feet from the parade square, and people are like throwing stuff at us and stuff like that. So we weren't well received out there. I mean, it's the right to protest. It's not the right to be throwing stuff at us, but I don't think veterans are viewed as highly as they were at one time. Part of that could be because we haven't had like nationally, we haven't had a war, like a real war. Not to diminish, Afghanistan or Bosnia or whatever. But if you read history books and stuff, World War II, Canada was all hands on deck. If you weren't gone away, they were doing metal drives or doing rubber drives or doing what they could. People were rationing food. Not that you would ever want to have to ration food, but the unity across the country was like, we're Canadian and we're gonna do what's got to get done over there, right? So the national unity was there. Afghanistan was such a long campaign, and it was sporadic. It wasn't as hard and fast as the Second World War or anything like that. So I don't think the country was as supportive of the Afghanistan campaign as it was, say, Second World War. Part of that's for political reasons, and that's a whole other can of worms to try to get into. But I don't think you have to support the war. You don't have to support the government sending soldiers to a country for whatever reason they might be deciding to send soldiers to that country for. But there's still guys and girls that are your age, that, like, I joined when I was 17. Mm-hmm. I had to sign my paperwork. There's still guys and girls that are willing to sign the line and say, I'm willing to lace up the boots, and then, whatever happens is going to happen. So I think that willingness to die, that's about the biggest sacrifice that you can make. And I don't think people recognize that willingness to give everything that you have to give in this life for for queen and country or whatever your motivation might be. But I don't know a bigger sacrifice than that.
All right then. So I guess here comes the last question. I know we were talking about a little bit before how Veterans Affairs is kind of slow in terms of how they deal with things. I guess the main question would be, is there anything specific or improvements that we can do for the injured from war and other conflicts to help them live better lives, from like the Second World War, Korea, Afghanistan, etc., etc., etc.?
Well, the number of World War II veterans is going down, right, for obvious reasons. The war was it was a long time ago in one way, but it was not that long ago, and depending how you look at it. I think, and again, I don't know the logistics behind organizing something like that, but so when you release from the military, you talk to Veterans Affairs, do you have any injuries? Yes. They do the paperwork for your injuries. You may get some kind of a medical pension or whatever. And then your pension would cover, like, doctor's appointments and things like that. But there's no, how'd you say it, like a quality of life aspect to it. Like, so for example, guy in the artillery goes deaf. They pay for his hearing aids. He'd get, a few $100s every month saying, thank you for your service. Here's your medical check for the month. But if that guy's also like dealing with PTSD or is dealing with, alcoholism or whatever, a few $100s a month doesn't go that far, Or if a guy's in a wheelchair, he's going to need a lot more than a few $100s a month because there's not that many jobs that you can do, and especially if you're a combat arms. If you're a combat arms, you're not really qualified to do anything. Because if your job is to be good at war, if there's no wars going on, you know, there's not a big demand on the workforce for machine gunners and door kickers, right? So it'd be nice if, so at the regional level, so say PEI, you know, there might be an office in Charlottetown, like a branch of Veterans Affairs, or you know, the Military Family Resource Center is getting better at like maintaining quality of life. So when guys get out, they get their check, but you know, if he's got a drug problem, or if he's homeless, he's got nowhere to live, a few $100s won't rent you anything, right? So it'd be nice if either the MFRC or Veterans Affairs, or there was some sort of third party that was designated by the government just to maintain reasonable quality of life. Nothing extravagant, but just good enough to give these guys a shot when they get out, right?
All right, thanks.